Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the round of 16 of the League of Legends Collegiate Championship presented by State Farm. I know there's a lot of great League of Legends going on around the world, but we appreciate you joining us for these collegiate games on this Mother's Day. And if you are able to talk to your mom and you haven't talked to her yet, just go tune out of the broadcast. You can take care of that for 5 minutes. So call home, call your moms today, wish her a happy Mother's Day, and you can come right back and keep on tuning into the collegiate action. I think that's the only time I'm allowed to say, like, tune out to call your moms. I feel like it's very appropriate on the day. But, hey, I'm really lucky to be joined by a couple fantastic analysts today. Dylan Kleinven, as always, and also our very special guest on the day, Sean, OPTSM fan Shannon, the League of Legends head coach at Grand Canyon University. And OP, how you doing, man?
Hey man, it's going great. I'm ready to see some great League of Legends action today from these guys on the Fields of Justice.
The Fields of Justice, the Summoner's Rift. Hey, we're going to have to see who wins the right and is just enough to move on to the round of 8. We sent 4 teams yesterday through to the round of 8 as we will be checking out that bracket. And honestly, we had some great games. We were blessed with 2 games that went the distance on stream, Dylan. I know we had a lot of fun. OP, I'm curious, did you catch those? Any surprises that you had with the results of yesterday?
Oh man, yeah, totally. I was really surprised by the Winthrop game even going to 3. Highlanders coming out swinging. And then also the Purdue versus Toronto series going the length of distance. And then also on the other stream on Upsurge, UIUC shocking me going down to sunny Buffalo right there. So just really, really great performances all around.
And, you know, we finally broke the Academy curse of just the 2 zeros from week 1. I'm so happy that we actually got some game 3, some intense games. And like Sean said, you know, we got some upsets. It was really, really fun to be a part of. We saw U of T move on. We learned who their opponent is today. I believe that's actually just on the Upsurge stream right now. That's going to be a really fun series to watch, Bethany versus UWO. So keep your eyes on both streams today. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And speaking of both streams, we do have that full schedule for you as well. I have gotten word from production that the only other time I'm allowed to tell you to tune off of this stream is if you go over to twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports to check out UWO versus Bethany. One of those teams will be fighting for the rights to go up against the University of Toronto Esports, who we saw on this stream yesterday, earn the right to earn that round of 8 spot, and I know that they wanted UWO to win so they could have that Canadian duel in the round of 8 and solve that rivalry once and for all in this collegiate season. Also, ASU versus the Columbia Cougars, a great game as well on the second stream, but for this stream today, we have 2 good ones, 2 of the top programs in the nation hitting the Rift once again today. In the first round, we have Harrisburg Storm looking to move on to the round of 8, going up against George Mason University, who got the upset win in the round of 32 over Northeastern in order to get here. Harrisburg had a pretty easy set against the Goucher Gophers as well. Second game of the day, if you are a Maryville fan, they will be playing later. They're going up against Coug Esports, so really excited to see that series as well, as I know that Coug, they're definitely coming in as the underdogs, but have a point to prove on the day as they will be taking it up against the defending collegiate champions, as we did not have the tournament last year, so Maryville gets to regain that title, and I know that they won it for a 3rd time as they keep on filling up their trophy case. In Overwatch, collegiate championship for them just isn't enough as they try to keep on proving they are one of the best programs that we have in the country over multiple games. But guys, we have to get focused back onto this matchup today. We have Harrisburg versus George Mason. I know that Harrisburg's the big program that, you know, they have the varsity scholarships, they have a special and history teacher helping out, former LCS player that's represented us internationally, and also history teacher working with former LCS teams too. But I actually want to start off with George Mason University and how they were able to get here. Dylan, going to start with you.
Yeah, you know, GMU is a very exciting team. We saw them pull off what many called the upset in week 1 against Northeastern, a team that you and I had the pleasure of facing multiple times in various competitions. But it was an exciting week 1, and they're kind of one of these teams that not too much is known from them. They're from the South Conference. They're a bit of a scrappy team. You know, their team, they definitely favor these picks that like to get into brawls. They like to skirmish. They like messy games. Not really, you know, kind of the the clean style that Harrisburg is known for. We know Harrisburg, Maryville, teams like that, they love this kind of, analytical approach to the game. You dissect every single part of the game. You have your rotations and everything down to a T. But George Mason, GMU, they're a team that's going to take it to you, and they're going to take it to you pretty much at every single turn of the game. They're going to fight you in the early game, they're going to fight you in the mid game, and it's going to be so much fun to see if they can actually match up to the incredible individual prowess that is on the side of, the HU Storm.
Yeah, I know that GMU getting here, really proving themselves in that first set against Northeastern. And OP, I kind of want to put you on the spot as well. What are your thoughts on this team coming in as the challengers going up against Harrisburg?
I think they offer a lot of variety in the picks that Dylan was talking about. Jinx GF right there in the mid lane, pulling out stuff like the Nico. A lot of focus on enchanters for this team, so not necessarily what you're most likely used to seeing if you're watching some of the MSI stuff right now. But I think that if they can leverage what might be a position of power in the jungle with Nuri, that they can look to try to go hand to hand with Harrisburg.
Yeah, that's a great point. Oh, sorry, Covey. That's a great point. I do think that the one area where GMU is able to really pull ahead in this matchup is in the jungle. Nuri is a player who has reached very high challenger before, and he's somebody that, in terms of individual skill, can definitely compare to his counterpart on Harrisburg. So I think keep your eye on this jungle matchup going into the game today.
I love how Dylan's apologizing to me when I'm trying to cut him off when he has all the big brain points this time around. That said, I was just getting excited because you mentioned the jungle, and I wanted to talk about the jungle on the flip side, as we have two junglers that Harrisburg showed in their series against Goucher Gophers, and both Shorter Ace and Zyle looked very strong in those two games. And I know that Shorter Ace, a very storied and careered collegiate player that you also wanted to talk about, OP.
Yeah, Shorter Ace, he's been around for one of the longer periods in Collegiate League of Legends. Overall, he's a name that you've probably heard, had some stints in Academy or previous to that. What I like about Shorter Ace's game is that it seems like he always comes in with a plan. He's probably alongside with Clyde, someone who is leading in these shot callings for Harrisburg. And so it's something that I think that we were just talking about for the side of George Mason with Nuri, that Shorter Ace or Zyle, depending on if they do it within this best of three, look to swap either one of them in, since we did see them in the previous series, as you said, versus Goucher, that it'll be interesting if first X Special and the crew over at HU have anything specifically planned for each one of these junglers.
Yeah, and that's something that, bringing that different flavor, those different champion pools as well. Shorter Ace, we see the highlights, him playing the Talia. Zyle, historically actually known for the likes of his Zac, Kindred, Sejuani, that kind of play. I say Sejuani, Shorter Ace also being the Sejuani one trick on Wildcard, one of the amateur teams that he competed in over in 2020 Scouting Grounds. And Dylan, I know this is a team as well that you have some experience with, just doing your research and also being a part of Scouting Grounds last year on Team Dramatic. I don't know how much you want to talk about those results, but hey, it was pretty fun and always an honor as well to have a challenger level jungler on the desk with us when talking about the jungle matchups for both of these teams going into the series. How important is that matchup going to be as we look at both these teams and their path to success?
I think it's pretty much going to be everything, because on the side of GMU, you have a team that wants to play through their solo lanes, and in the current meta, typically when you are wanting to play through strong, carry solo lanes, you need to enable that through your jungler in the early stages of the game, right? You pick something like a Rumble, like a Morgana, Udyr is something that we've seen picked, even though, his items and his kit's been nerfed a little bit. These kind of champions, Kindred is another example. They all function very well when you can get them going through your strong laners, and then you can snowball your laners to carry the torch once these champions have kind of fallen off in the mid and late stages of the game. And I do think that with all the new junglers that we've seen, things like the Rumble, like I pointed out before, Talia is something that we've seen a little bit more of. Karthus we just saw on the MSI stage today. these are all champions that you associate with shorter ace. Like, he's kind of like the AP jungler aficionado. He's known for Nidalee, he's known for his Talia, all these champions that he's very, very proficient at, and I'm excited to see what sort of plan Harrisburg had, because we saw last week, one thing that we kept typing on the desk is that these really, really good teams that are in mismatched games, they don't have to show anything. Well, now against GMU, they've already proven that they can take the scalp of a better team.
Yep.
They have to actually pick something. You know, Harrisburg can't keep hiding things forever. So I'm excited to see what they whip out in this series, in the jungle specifically, both with who they're actually going to play and then what champions they're going to play.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just to follow up on that, I would say that shorter aces champion pool reminds me similar to that of like Pabu right now. And where I'm going with this is you're talking about the AP jungle aficionado. I'm kind of hoping that we see his pocket fiddlesticks come out here sometime.
Baby.
I think that's a pick that can really mess with what GMU likes to do, and I just think it's also just a secret kind of OP pick right now that shorter ace is probably one of the few junglers to be proficient enough at.
I'm laughing at how you're talking about how Fiddle's a pocket pick, whereas like every scrim that we've had with Dylan, he's like, I think Fiddle might be good here. Like we could maybe play Fiddle.
It's always good. It's always good.
Fiddle's always good. Definitely a pick that we're going to have to look out for. I know I kind of want to go back to you, Sean, because talking from a coaching perspective, we were lucky enough to have Rebel Fox. He sat down with a coach of GMU. I sat down with the special, and I know that both coaches actually talked a lot about team bonding, how it's a big chunk of practice for GMU is just hanging out, getting to know each other. Nick Special, I was giving him a hard time and kind of talking to him about how the team went mini golfing this past week. It's a nice team bonding experience. And they had a lot of fun doing that. What's it like for you as a head coach to try and encourage these environments? And what does that mean to you and a team going into a match like this where the stakes are so high?
I think you have to do the pre-work to where when you come to moments like these, you're not having to do so much because there is so much pressure. There's so much prep that you have to go in and everything's on the line. But especially in a COVID setting right now, right? We mentioned earlier that last year we didn't have the Collegiate League of Legends. So team bonding over this time to get everyone back and to try to do these things, I think is not even just important any given year, but especially this year. So whether that's George Mason and them, always doing these team bonding experiences, because you have to make sure that when you're in the game that you have this trust with people, you have this innate synergy possibly that you can see from people like Jink's girlfriend and Nuri over there. And then also for, Harrisburg doing mini golf. I mean, like there's nothing good. There's nothing bad about some friendly competition, right? Mini golf's definitely the best place I think to do it, or personally I would do go-karts, but those are the things where you need to have people who are trying to push the best out of each other in a healthy way, in a good environment.
Yeah, building that. I like how you talked about the importance of, as I always like to say, iron sharpens iron, right? And the better people are around you, the better you can help out your team and prove as that is a journey you have to take as a full squad. And I don't know about you, but I think any excuse for me to talk about golf on air and on broadcast, I'm going to take. So I'm really glad they were able to choose mini golf for their team bonding experience. With that said, enough about that, as these two teams are going to have that bond be strong enough to take the win, move on to the round of 8. I'm going to get thoughts on both of you. Dylan, I'm going to start with you. Who do you think is going to take this series and why?
Man, my predictions yesterday weren't too good, so hopefully I can bounce back today. I'm going to have to go with Harrisburg. I think they're the clear favorites in this series. I want to say 2-1, but my heart's telling me it's going to be 2-0. I don't think it's going to be very close. I think as long as Shorter Ace's team can play well enough around him to nullify, Nuri and his potential, advantages in the jungle, I do think that Harrisburg is going to take the series 2-0.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I want to say 2-1 just because my fantasy prediction, since I wasn't on the desk, also didn't go to plan yesterday. I was expecting not quite so many 2-1s. But I think the difference, as we've been addressing for the most part, is in this jungle. There are moments to where I can see GMU really turning it on. We talk about their fighting over everything. And the way they approach team fights is going to be something to watch. And some of the, weird picks. I don't know how many times they've scrimmed against Nico mid or anything like that we've seen previously from Jink's girlfriend, and what that can apply in terms of pressure and moving that down to the bot lane, which I think is probably the unsung story for this whole thing with Clyde down there. But I think it's probably, I'm going to go with a 2-0 for HU here.
Okay, well, just like yesterday, we have some more experts. These not on the desk, but some other people lending us some thoughts as we actually got an outside researcher expert giving us predictions as well as we have a bit of a clip to roll for you as it looks like we have, Shio, a 1-year-old male corgi, the dog of one of our admins, Sydney. Looks like that is going to be a GMU 2-0, so we have a little bit of dissonance from our outside experts, but we're going to have the teams play and figure out, and just like State Farm, we've got you covered with casters as well. Excited to throw it over to Mazel and RebelFox to take through all the action of Game 1 right now.
Welcome to the caster desk. You didn't get to hear me, but I was screaming like a little child when I saw that dog come on my screen. That thing is so cute. Oh my god. All right, now that I've got that out of the way, welcome to the caster desk, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for the League of Legends College Championship. We have game number 1 kicking off very shortly between George Mason and Harrisburg. Best of 3. Winner goes on to round of 8. Loser goes home. Rounds ending on the round of, or at least their run ending in the round of 16. Rebel, I'm so excited.
I am too, especially after yesterday. We got such an amazing round of 16
Bangers.
games. All right, literally banger after banger after every game, every series. It was incredible yesterday, and I expect nothing less from these teams today as our first series here between GMU and, of course, Harrisburg University is bound to be an amazing series yet again between these two teams. There's a lot of firepower that both of them bring for a lot of different reasons, and I'm excited to see what they've got in store for us today.
Yeah, the firepower is the key here, I feel like, for both of these teams, and very different, I guess, spotlights that we've been putting on these two teams and talking a little bit on the desk, but also between us, Rebel, it's definitely a little bit different, right? We're looking at George Mason's Nuri, we're looking at the jungle presence, we're looking at the interesting picks that George Mason can pull out, the fun things, the crazy things, the things to get Harrisburg off kilter, and on the other side, we got the tried and true, we got Clyde. You saw him in the clips before the games, everything. I mean, pentas, triples, everything you could ever ask for on the pike, and an absolute stud coming out of the support role for Harrisburg.
There's some comparisons to be made on both sides where, like, of course, you have Nuri, who's done some very good things for the team. It is a big portion of what the early game is going to look like, playing into some of the solo lanes, putting a lot of pressure up there, leaving the bot lane alone for the most part, wanting to play like that. Another big aspect to this game, of course, is that, like, pure 5-on-5 and leaning heavily into one side of the map. Anybody who knows me, I'm a data scientist master student, and I pulled some stats out of what we have as a collection from, like, the round of 32 and before. And if you look at, like, the sum total of a number of assists that you get on any given kill, I looked at like Winthrop, and I looked at ISU, and I looked at even Harrisburg, and all of them are just completely trounced by this GMU squad because of how much they play together as a group by almost doubling, what Harrisburg brings. So in that first round, I know things were a little bit crazy in the round of 32, but it shows how much GMU plays together as a cohesive squad rather than playing in different pieces across anything else.
Yeah, and I think another piece is the fact that we have some pretty high KDAs here, Rebel. I feel
excruciating.
Like we're gonna see maybe some changes today, but I know we were talking about before, like a Moss sitting there with that infinity KDA right now. We'll see how far down it gets today, or if it continues on.
Yeah, keep that number tracked in your brains. Right now, Lycamals has not died yet. Also has, I believe, 24 kills to the name. A 17 kill performance on Silas last week was just absolutely absurd. Popped off ridiculously. This mid lane matchup, I think, is something that's a little underrated to start with, at least, and it will be exciting only because these are two mid laners we expect within the drafting phase to go for some more aggressive stuff. You're not going to see control mages. Likely, it's possible you do see those control mages, which would disappoint me greatly because these are two are picking.
We need the
No Syndrus. No Syndrus. No. But these are two mid laners that are willing to take things like Silas and like Yone. We saw Viego earlier on in the tournament. Things of that sort. Akali, very mobile, assassin-like mid laners to play aggressive in the earlier stages of the game. And I would love to see some skill matchups out of that one. Some assassin versus assassin. Haven't seen that for a very long time, and I would love to get a chance to view one of those particular matchups. I think it'd be great to see that between Lycamals and his mid lane opponent here.
I think so too, and I'm so excited for the matchup. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We're gonna send it to a little break while we do get those through. We'll be right back with the game number 1 draft. We promise. Welcome back, everyone, and we are at the caster desk. We arrived back. We got the technical difficulties sorted. We're going to be getting into draft here real quick, as it's going to be George Mason versus Harrisburg. I cannot wait to get this draft started. We've got some interesting things potentially coming out from either of these teams. We'll see who wants to pick those up first. Game 1 draft bucks on the line, Rebel, as we have Harrisburg on that blue side, GMU on the red.
I feel as though we almost need to pull in our good buddy Chilling Walk for a draft analysis like this, because like the amount of crazy stuff, you already get to see it firsthand. Trindermere's been taken off the board because that's something that has come through a number of times from the side of GMU. They play it in the top lane. It's not a normal pick. Viego getting banned out, which we haven't seen in pick or ban in most of the series already. Nico is a very specific pick for Jinx GF. These are super targeted bans. We're not seeing...
I need the Talia at this point. Come on.
That's fair. Yeah, Talia also is something that we're paying attention to from the side of HU Storm as being a flex pick between jungle and not mid lane, but ADC, as Hopeful's the one that plays that alongside Clyde. But a lot of targeted picks so far. Notice, though, Morgana's not off the board, Rumble's not off the board, Diana's not off the board, Udyr's not off the board. They take Varus off the board, but Trist is not off the board. There's so many power picks that are available.
How many junglers can we get?
There's Rumble.
Okay, how many? All right, Rumble has to come out. Rumble is...
He's too good.
Scary, man. Rumble is so scary. But it does leave these strong picks open, and Harrisburg are going to take that right up. They're immediately locking in the Morgana.
As they should. Shorter Ace is a super good jungler. He's been around for a very long time. You trust him on pretty much anything for the most part. And there's a reason why he's on one of the best programs in the country as this jungler. Yeah. He can play just about anything. I don't even know that he's played it super heavily inside of solo queue. Just trust that he's able to play a champion like Morgana inside of the jungle setting. Got to appreciate about that. Even if they're not, I know we don't get to see their scrims or anything like that, but still willing to bring something out that's even relatively fresh, even as far into the patch as we are right now.
And something that's also been a mainstay in the drafts here in this meta is that Tristana early pick, just because it does have that versatility. You can flex it, but it's also just a very strong ADC in general right now.
In general, I think Enrique is the one who will pull this more often than just about anybody else. And looking at the bottom lane, again, they don't pull the most pressure in the world across the entire map when it comes to what GMU's game plan typically is, but it does allow for Enrique and LaFossa to get some aggression in, and they can play into bottom lane, move it around in that like kind of big cluster we talked about, where they play together a lot more, get a lot more of those higher assists, as was that stat I was talking to you about, to try to get aggressive against towers. And Tristana is one of the picks that they've used in a number of different games to make exactly that happen. Hopeful might be going back to the Kaiser. We're not going to see the Talia, unfortunately, but we're still getting some of the standard stock stuff here from HU Storm. They're not taking this lightly. They're not going for anything troll. They're not going for anything crazy. They're not playing with their food. They know and respect what these round of 16 teams have been doing to some of our other top teams, and they're saying GMU will not be caught off guard to go into everything that they've been enjoying so far this play.
And the Enchantress coming through for GMU, something you highlighted when we were doing the prep here, and something that they really love to go for, immediately getting the most played for LaFossa there. They also lock in the Kindred. So that's going to be an interesting one for sure. The other side, though, Harrisburg got the set.
That was it. I thought there was more.
Yep, that's it. Set's the tweet. Set is the tweet.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need.
I mean, that's all you need a lot of the time, especially if Clyde's going to be piloting that jam. Like, that might be all you need.
There. It is flexible between Clyde and Sandflame. I love that about this Harrisburg team, where they've got so many champions that are flexible into a number of lanes. And you see GMU, they don't want to take those risks, so they're taking away top laners, making sure there's nothing else in the pool. You do it if you're afraid of Clyde's roaming ability, because it's something that's matched by very, very few junglers here. He's one of the top supports we have. I think it's a jungle. He's one of the top supports that we have here at this tournament, and when it comes to roaming, he's nearly unmatched in that regard specifically. So the set is something that dominates in the laning phase, but is flexible for Harrisburg. I wanted to touch on Kindred, though, because Nuri, extremely good on this Kindred pick. A number of games have been just hard carried specifically by this grab. We've also seen it as the response to these mage junglers that have come in. Things like Morgana, things like Rumble, that could be attacked early by the aggression that Kindred brings. You need pushing lanes for that to occur, and that's what I expect from GMU. Grab yourself some pushing lanes, or give safety over to the side of HU Storm, let them try to hold back, and then push forward to allow Kindred some aggression.
Yeah, I think that head-to-head, not just the players, shorter race against Nuri, but the champions themselves, Morgana, Kindred, so up in the air. You do get that early aggression on the Kindred, feels really good. You get the early advantages, feels really good. If you don't, you're trying to find those marks, you're trying to find things all game long, and it doesn't really work out for you. So I'm really wanting to see Nuri propel that early game for the rest of his team. We'll see what happens with the rest of their composition, though, to tie that together, as the Scion does come through as their 4th pick. So leaving a little bit of counter pick for the mid lane there. And I believe that's that 5th pick. I wonder what we see from Harrisburg this time around, though. So it's going to be the Victor locked in for the mid lane.
Is a shame because, again, we saw some aggression that could come out of both mid lane picks, but Harrisburg, again, they're giving a ton of respect over. They're not playing to anything crazy, so they're going with the blind Victor. No, it's not going to be Clyde's set. Instead, it's going to be that set in the top lane for Sandflame, who's a very good set player, and Nautilus is something that Clyde's gone back to a couple of times. I've seen it consistently in this tournament. It seems to be popping back up, especially as a response to Thresh, but it's pretty good into this bottom lane as well. Allows you some solid team fighting, and especially when you have like a corridor to throw your Qs into and things of that sort, which is kind of dictated by what Kindred can do with her ultimate. It lets you some freedom. As it's interesting, that's the Ziggs. This is something they actually played against quite a bit, more than anything. And so GMU picking up some of the Southern region flair here, grabbing that Ziggs up against the Victor.
And that matchup itself is going to be really interesting. I feel like it's going to lean a lot into what we see from these junglers, right? You're going to need a lot of influence there in the mid lane if you really want that to propel forward. I'm looking at the bot lane here because I want to see if we're going to get any shenanigans down that way. We have some very interesting, at least laning going through. We have that, Nautilus Kai'Sa, which I feel like is going to be really good going into the Tristana Lulu. Got to be careful on how JMU play that. It is one of LaFoss's most played champions. Going to feel really comfortable down there in the matchup. But I feel like that's also where you can, take that pressure, go to those objectives, see that control there from the jungle, where we saw, or we talked about at least, that the Morgana Kindred is going to be really important. That objective control ties right into that.
I'm extremely worried specifically for the structures on the side of Harrisburg, because you've now combined a Ziggs and a Tristana into one fell swoop, as well as an additional ADC. So when you talk about the siege potential that a Ziggs brings alongside a Tristana, especially when the range is there, this is like a backdoor waiting to happen when it comes to how fast they can take towers.
And you got Scion just in case. If you need to take the structure, just give the life.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And it's good lanes. There are a lot of safe lanes too. I will say I don't think Ziggs moves as well as other particular mid laners. A siege mage makes some sense, I think, more specifically into GMU, into Victor, things of that sort. But there's nobody that really moves super fast to help this Kindred out, which is the one thing I think GMU missed the mark on, is that Kindred's going to have to do a lot of work in the solo or attacking the lanes to really get ahead in this game, rather than going for the aggression into shorter aces Morgana, which is where I'd usually want to put the onus if I were GMU.
Yeah, I think that's we talked a little bit about, but also was more the important facet of this is trying to get under that Morgana and get something going for themselves, because we've all seen Morgana, the super farm clear coming in, 15-minute mark, get that one item spike, and it feels really good as Morgana just continue to propel that forward. You are there for the engages, you're there for the team fights, things like that. Whereas on the other side, you're looking for the carry out of the Kindred. You're looking for all of those resources to be on Nuri to be able to have those moments to outplay. And if you can't find those early advantages, I feel like it's really rough. You still have all that scaling, right? You have the Tristana Ziggs. It's going to feel good in the late game, but you need that bridge in between, and Nuri has to be that key piece.
I will say, like, the amount of poke that you can have with like a Tristana Ziggs is great for GMU, but when it comes to the setup from HU Storm, where it's like if they have a decent early game, if they play as aggressive as we know that they can in the earlier stages, there's a problem that comes that like Morgana can fish from a distance, Nautilus can fish from a distance, and more importantly, the main engage tool from GMU is the Scion that gets just yoinked and pushed right back into the team by the likes of Sandflame, who plays that immaculately with the showstopper, and especially into like, say for example, you've got something like a Kindred ultimate that tells you exactly where this team is going to be standing. All of a sudden you have a nice bullseye to lower or drop a Scion into, or even pull someone out of, and all of a sudden your fight starts to go a little bit awry. So for GMU, they almost have to pull pacing of the game to begin with, and Harrisburg, their primary goal in this one, honestly, is just to play things out as standard as possible. If this game's going into mid-game territory, into like objective 5-on-5 territory, GMU's compositional execution is far more difficult given what they've given themselves. It puts a lot onto Jinx GF to put some CC in, and for a lot onto LaFossa to make sure that Enrique has got the resources necessary to put auto attacks into the other team.
Yeah, I think that's where we'll see the key difference, and that's where I want to kind of open that conversation up about the objective control and things like that, because I do feel like, Harrisburg have such a strong team fighting composition. They have so much lockdown, they have so much CC, so much spacing available to them in those fights, spreading the fight, and that's something that can really hurt GMU's composition if you do get them spread out. They need to try and be all together. They need the peel from Lafasa. They need to have that Lamb's Respite available to these carries who are going to get blown up. And so, you know, if you're looking at Harrisburg, they are heavily indexing into these team fight compositions. They are looking for those fights once they hit their spikes, and that's where you need to really be cautious as GMU when you're approaching this mid game, and especially if you haven't found that lead early.
And even worse also is like if Kindred ends up falling behind somehow, for example, in terms of clear speed to Morgana, like if you get an early kill or something on a Morgana, you put the Kindred behind to some extent. All of a sudden, river access becomes something that Clyde abuses really easly on a lot of different picks. You know, he's kind of known for the Pike pick, but on every single support, he'll find ways to roam and infect the map as often as possible. And as long as Kaisa is in a position where you've got like Serrated Dirk and some of the early item in the AD to have your Q wave clear, it's a little more difficult for the side of the likes of the Tristana to just run off the pure dive. You can usually play pretty safe in a lane like that, especially with no hard engage from the Lulu for the most part. And that means Nautilus affecting the map with Morgana is a ridiculous amount of CC to throw into like a Victor or a Kaisa or even a Set in the earlier phases of the game. And that makes it even more difficult that like if you're not winning in the early game, if you're not controlling pacing to start with, if you're not able to strike on multiple points of the map, which has been the struggle for GMU, then all of a sudden there's going to be avenues for the side of Harrisburg to strike early with, like we said, a much better 5-on-5 type squad.
Yeah, and I gotta put pressure on Jinx GF, on Enrique, right? Their positioning is going to have to be insane. Like, they are going to have to be juking. They're going to have to be breaking ankles in those team fights because there is so much to be thrown at them. Specifically, a lot of things that can just go straight at these squishies, have the damage to follow it up and blow them up. So I really want to see how those early fights go. Again, this all changes if the lead gets developed there by GMU. We talked already about how the Kindred, if it gets ahead, can be very strong against the Morgana, get up in their face, you know, stop the normal path that she would be taking. But that all depends on the early pathing, on where we see these junglers, you know, butting heads early on.
Yeah, it does feel like there's going to come a time and a place where like the front line on the side of Harrisburg will eventually get out tanked by Sion, but that's not till really late into the game. And there's so much potential burst from like you've got like the Q and then the W from Morgana for low health members for execution. Q from Kaisa, Victor's whole entire kit is essentially just burst, and that means that if Sion's not careful or if somebody else gets caught out in the process, Kindred Ultimate's going to be necessary, and that fight is just a lost one if you can't get proper positioning for Ziggs to just throw in bombs and allow the rest of your team to auto attack. There is a problem that ends up showing up in, again, that kind of negative 5-on-5 for GMU. So it's all about getting this early pressure. And I think the biggest thing they can do, if they're able to strike on the map in terms of like Rift Heralds and then Tower Gold and take a gold advantage, that's the best way that you play. Even if you're giving up neutral dragons to begin the game, as long as you're getting gold advantages here for GMU, you will be thriving and you'll be fine.
And I just really wonder how many resources they're going to put in the Ziggs basket, especially. I mean, we've talked about this mid lane matchup, you know, Leica Moss obviously having such high KDA, Jinx GF just being a great all-around player there for GMU throughout this tournament. And I want to see if they're going to index into really going into that mid lane, where we're going to see that split lane push, because I do think top lane's a little bit of an island. You have some strength up there, right? If you're looking at Sandflame on the set, Sion's going to be fine waiting for those TP plays around the map. So I feel like the big focus is going to be down towards mid or bot lane at least.
That's another point of contention I think that is now developed as well, which is a lack of CC that's been drafted by GMU as well for the Kindred to abuse, where it's like mid lane you've got Ziggs, which is great for poking, but you're not going to accomplish much. And then on the bottom side, like you've got Lulu who can use the polymorph and the ultimate, and then you've got like Buster Shot. But outside of that, like no really definitive engage type CC to use on the bottom lane for Kindred means you have to put fights in 4v4s 5-on-5 territory, which is where GMU likes to play. And they've drafted a lot of damage for specifically that situation. If they can cluster that quickly, Ziggs does good damage from a good range, and poking somebody out means that you can't access the fight. Victor's going to have that struggle to begin this game with. And then, of course, it's the same thing with like Kaisa and the same thing with like Nautilus, where they're both relatively low range to start off the game, and Ziggs can put a lot of pressure into them to prevent them from going in as fast as you would want them to. So it's Harrisburg's decisiveness will be tested, I think, during the course of some of these bigger fights if GMU is able to access them early in the game.
Yeah, I think you talked a lot about it beforehand, and when we were prepping for this, that GMU definitely like to favor one side. They're very heavy-handed when they pick a side on the map, and so we'll see which it's going to be more than likely down towards the bot side. We'll see. Maybe they throw all their eggs into the Scion basket, but on the other side, especially, you're looking at a pretty star-studded roster for the fact that they all like to perform. They all are individually good. They all have some strengths to them, and especially, and we've already talked about him a lot, but Clyde on this Nautilus is going to be absolutely key for how they use this mid-game, how do they use this early game, if he can get roaming, if he can get going on the map, and really try and be there to help Shorter Ace affect the map. As you do see this beautiful nature shot. Love you, observers, for showing me all the animals. We got the deer this time, had ducks, had all kinds of stuff, rabbits, whatever you want. There's even whatever that animal was. But we have made it onto the Rift. We had a short little pause from the players, but after all is said and done, game 1 between George Mason and Harrisburg starting now.
Also, I want to give a bunch of credit to both these teams where coming out of their divisions respectively. I remember we were talking about this. I think the desk might have mentioned it during the process. I know Sean was a big advocate of this, which was Harrisburg started off the season ranked 19th or something in the Eastern Division, and GMU didn't start very high, ranked in the South Division either. They both had to overcome a good number of competent competitors just to make sure that they could get into the later game playoffs. And of course, like we said, Harrisburg was able to make the run to finals, where they would end up going on to lose to Western, which was a 3-1 series in favor of Western. GMU did lose to Winthrop 3-0, of course, in their semifinals match, ended up going on to beat NC State eventually in that third, fourth place match. So they both had a lot of adversity. They both have had tons of games to play to get into this position. They're two of our more experienced teams when it comes to the sheer amount of games that they've played inside of the collegiate season. And I'm ready to see what that kind of experience has brought to both of them for this series.
I cannot wait as we get same side starts, meaning we might get some butting heads down towards the bot lane, depending on where these junglers want to path towards. We almost got some shenanigans level 1. We had ready to go GMU, or just in case Harrisburg wanted to try to pull something fast, funny. Nothing going to come of it, and it's going to be a typical early game here for both sides.
A couple of things to note. It is Predator for the Morgana. I know there's even a meager amount of discussion that comes about. I think Predator is perfectly fine, especially for putting you into a backline. If you get a nice flash into a flank, Sandflame is just kind of beating down Brand right now on that top lane. We also knew him as P9, which is actually still in the name, or it's 9 and then N. It's Brand. I don't know when that name got changed. These players change their names so often, it's really difficult to keep track of sometimes. But if you hear me or Mazel call him P9, the reason why is because last week he had this name that was 45 characters long, and it started with a P and E and a 9, and we're like, all right, we're calling him P9, and that's what our desk was calling him as well. That's the reason. But for as best you can, we'll try to call him Brand, as just to make sure that clarity is made before we end up insulting anybody. My apologies.
All right, so we do the thing we always got to look out for here in the early game when you have a Kindred on the map is where the RNG is going to land.
Yes.
On which side, at least, for the first mark. We do have this first scuttles coming up here pretty shortly. Both junglers down towards this bot side, pathing just like we would expect them to be. And I Nuri is definitely hoping for that bot lane scuttle to be the mark.
I am in a really big qualm right now, because if that bottom lane scuttle ends up being the point of affection, but that is not the mark location, Nuri has skipped 2 camps already, which is excruciatingly illegal.
I got lucky!
He won the RNG battle. Mid lane or bottom lane also has his support, so there is that to talk about. Morgana is actually on the way in, but Ziggs is the first to move from mid lane, and so they can't even respond to this. So this ends up being not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because Nuri skipped so many camps for this. And actually, now because of the pathing that was taken by Shorter Ace, is shut off from the top side of the map. So that's going to be a double scuttle coming in from Nuri, unless Nuri decides to walk to Wolves for... okay, Nuri has decided to walk to Wolves and take those as well. You're tempting fate right now, Nuri, if you're going to attempt to try to contest against the Morgana, as now you flop sides of the map and the top lane is pushing against you, as it was like a cheater recall from Sandflame, who could easily TP and support. Raptors are also up. I feel as though Nuri understands the situation that they've been thrust into, and instead are just going to full clear camps back up to Krugs, and then come back down, go from Grump up into the rest of the map. Actually kind of creative pathing to be able to get your camps to respawn properly. Also opens up for a gank. As soon as you get that back off, after you take Grump, there's going to be a short timer before Wolves come back, and that's going to be a point of attack here from the side of the Kindred.
It's really interesting. You know, shorter ace being able to get that early back, you definitely don't want to try and fight that. It's going to be really rough. You have the Predator available for shorter ace now as well, but that does just mean that Nuri's going to take a little bit longer to get onto the map. Maybe just looking for that second mark reset there. I do want to say that, you know, I would like to see Nuri getting involved here pretty quickly. But we'll have to see if that actually turns out true. Is, you know, shadowing top lane. I really want to add a point as well, though. We already saw Clyde attempting a roam. This, again, is an integral piece to how Harrisburg win their games, is getting Clyde unlocked. And seeing him already being able to get on the roam timers, things like that, is really promising.
And notice, if you will, also that like first backs are coming through. You have the double longsword 10 CS advantage in bottom lane. You're actually seeing a CS advantage develop in jungle as well, where it looks like Lycamals, especially with the stacked bottom lane, is going to go in for some potential counter jungling or maybe a gank on bottom side. There's a ward that's about to expire in that rush. I don't think they timed it perfectly. Find the hook though.
Lafasa just gets dredge lined to death. First blood goes to the man himself, Clyde. Second could go down as well. So close to those plasma stacks going off on Enrique, but not going to get it. Still, first blood secured by Harrisburg.
I thought what happened right there is Lafasa flashed early and the hook was able to catch outside of the brush, but it actually looks like Lafasa had learned or lost that flash much earlier in that process. And now a dive could come in as well. Nuri's here to cover, but Enrique's extremely low.
Oh, no. Enrique gets stunned up. That's the power of the Nautilus. Nautilus going to go down immediately, though, to that satchel charge by Enrique. And they get the trade back. Still, the ADC has fallen. No kills going over to Hopeful yet, though. So the gold not necessarily going to the Kaisa, but still getting the gold on Harrisburg is fine.
I really do like what just happened here is you shut out Enrique from this bottom wave, which was humongous. This was the play. Again, Lafasa noticed no flash on this one, so not able to get out of this situation. Nice play from shorter ace as well. I will say this Q does land, actually really nicely played Q, and Enrique has to flash immediately to get out. And then this is just a collapse. Nice cover from Nuri, though, knowing that this is going to come through. Clyde just walks under, has to flash just to find that one auto attack, can't get through. And like you said, the satchel charge also gets a nice kill for the Tristana, which is a good cover, because look at that double, triple stacked wave that just crashed under that bottom tower.
That's going to be a nice little advantage. Already 20 CS up is Hopeful on the Kaisa. Clyde feeling comfortable with roaming to that mid lane again, trying to get this vision control over the river. Dragon has spawned. It will be this Ocean Dragon to start us off, and Enrique just gives it a little love tap as they've got 4 members collapsing down here on this dragon. It will be the first dragon taken by GMU.
Getting everyone to at least play the Saturday games. GMU. A bunch of jokesters talking about how the hardest part was getting them all to come together on Saturdays. I know scheduling's a difficulty here inside of Collegiate, and so Saturday games, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to make sure that everyone is 100% available, especially with tests and things like that. So this is a nice answer to see coming out of that the ADC here from the side of GMU. It highlights one of the problems that you see is a lot of these people, they're not full-time players. They don't always like do this 100% of their issue. Their time is allotted in a bunch of different places. As you're seeing Lafasa and look at that, Nuri are a flank and a half right now.
Yeah, they are. Clyde and Hopeful have no idea. Now they will, but they get the stun CC down onto Nuri. There's the TPs now coming in. 2 of them coming in for GMU just to commit to the fight. Showstopper immediately into the tower. Rocket jump away, though. As Hopeful goes in with the killer instinct, gets the kill. And that is the true cold-bloodedness of Hopeful and Harrisburg as they pull away a kill.
Trade of 1-for-1 right there. Also double CS in the bottom lane. Somehow everything's coming up Harrisburg, even in a situation where you see GMU, they're willing to fight this one out. They want to pull that 5 members to the bottom side of the map, but Harrisburg does not play their game. Good on Clyde. He did end up going down, but CC'd long enough to put some extra damage in. I also like that Sam Flame was there to bait out the double TP out of this lane, so more of the rest of the map can get taken. You'll get a chance to see this. First off, huge flank. Amazing setup here from Lafasa and Naguri. They notice something's wrong because Enrique's in the middle of the wave. They're like, what's happening? Great free hook from Clyde, but Kindred has the ultimate, which can stall things out a little longer. Thankfully, Naguri doesn't actually burn that one and keep Clyde alive any longer. The angle on that, not perfect to hit Naguri, which might have been the execution or force it, but right there, Hopeful sees, able to go onto Enrique. The flash over the wall from Naguri does not get anywhere close enough to get over that wall to put pressure onto Hopeful, so Hopeful walks away with the trade, and it's just more minions and more gold taken away from the Tristana.
Exactly that, and really nice heads-up play from Hopeful, all ready to start us off here, being able to get that kill, wrap back around, not be touched by all the members that were there from GMU. but it's typical GMU fashion, right? We're seeing exactly what we talked about. I know you got
Angry.
Clyde feel a little salty off that one, but it's typical GMU fashion. We
Yes.
see them, full commit to the one side. They need to get those resources down in the bot lane. We see where their focus is now, and they just need to find a way to play around it.
Yeah, they are still at a massive gold deficit for a number of reasons. First off, advantage in both top and in AD position in terms of wave. And in fact, even in mid lane, you're seeing a wave and a half advantage start to accrue in terms of that regard. And then the other big thing is like Morgana's keeping up in terms of jungle pressure, has a ridiculous amount of clear speed when the AP starts to come through. And Naguri slowly is going to get pulled more and more to these lanes to try to put some damage in to keep this gold high enough, because eventually that's going to run out for the most part. One of the biggest advantages, also about 1,000 of this gold, is on Clyde specifically, which isn't the most useful gold, but having a frontliner that can work in some of these mid-game skirmishes means Harrisburg can take some of the 5-on-5s in the right situation with that Nautilus soaking a good amount of the pressure. We've seen that a handful of times as Naguri finds his way back to the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, Nuri still just looking for those stacks, has Clyde marked here. Wants to try and get that second stack to snowball it into the third. The third stack's all the way across the map, though, on the ground. So you're going to have a long way to walk in that case. We see the opposite focuses from these junglers, though. You're not opposite, rather, but shorter ace in the mid lane, waiting for the gank, trying to see if they can set something up on a Jinx GF, while Nuri is down on the bot side, ready to go. Showstopper goes in onto Brand. There's the unstoppable onslaught as well. Ooh, the canceled auto attack's going to hurt on that one. Sandflame almost gets the kill on Brand, but doesn't find it. Bot lane fight's going to continue here if they can find it. They do not. Shorter ace right on the other side was looking for it. Sandflame's going to find this one. You cannot run away from a set. He is too strong. The flash comes out, though, and that's going to save Brand's life.
Tons of pressure being put on by Sandflame right now in this top lane, able to pull off plates and everything else. So that's a summoner burnt, and just allowing this to be on an island. The reason you pick the set is to try to just like sandbag as best as possible, make sure there's no massive snowball that goes on. Here, Jinx GF has to just cover so that this wave doesn't go to complete waste. Going to throw the ultimate, clear it as fast as possible. Won't even incur a tower shot, but still 2 full plates pulled off by the set, as that's another movement out of the mid laner here. And Lyca Moss hasn't been able to perfectly execute this. I got to give a bunch of credit to Jinx GF, who's been able to find these rooms without much. Shorter Ace currently sitting on a ward, unfortunately, but the Rift Herald's going to get dropped as a way to try to put additional pressure onto this bottom tower. We really thought with this combination of Ziggs and Tristana that was going to be the big tower-taking duo, and they were going to be able to move around the map. But instead, it's been Harrisburg who's been finding all these tower plates.
They have indeed. Getting a ton of gold in that bot lane as well with the Rift Herald. Okay, Nuri has made the trip.
Yes.
Sandflame not going to find it out.
Nope. Won't have to.
So, mark secured by Nuri. That'll be the second mark of the game. Need a couple more, but that will be a good start, as the first tower will go down to Harrisburg. Even more gold given to Hopeful and Clyde.
That will. Solely 4,500 gold advantage that's been claimed here by the side of Harrisburg. Nuri does respond on the other side of the map, but they can't force anything because of just how ridiculously powerful Sandflame is right now. Even a 2v1 under that tower probably gets a little bit dicey with a combination of Kindred. The Dragon is the next thing on the board because of the resets that have just come through from the bot lane here from Harrisburg, so it will be second Dragon of the game pulled off. But again, in my opinion, like the whole intention behind George Mason is that you walk into mid-game with a gold advantage because of the champions that you've got. If you got Tristana going, if you've got things like the Ziggs going.
Oh, the Mark!
The Mark actually reset to, okay.
The Mark
Naguri has been like RNG
God.
master this game. What is this?
This is insane!
This is incredible.
That was such good timing as they targeted. It comes down. All right, third mark secure. That's how you jump up in the game. You need one more for that fourth stack. But Clyde is looking top lane. We've seen the lane swap come through for Harrisburg. And Brand's going to have to deal with a very strong Hopeful right now, and especially one that is on Kaisa that can burn down some health bars.
Yeah, should be decently easy just because of how tanky Sion is to try to soak some of the early game. But notice, if you will, because Naguri was, or Nuri, my apologies, was on bottom side and was taking that dragon, that means that you're able to cover on top side relatively easily. They're doing the same on bot lane where they're looking for a dive. You got 3 squishy members into a set. This isn't the most guaranteed thing in the world. On top side, Sion already had to go away. Can they find anything? Nice play.
They find the long-range dredge line into the kill. Brand gonna go down here to Shorter Ace, who gets the kill. There's the bomb to come in on top from Jinx GF. Not going to do anything. Bot lane Clyde, not there anymore. It's just Sandflame, and he's got to deal with a very strong pushing lane. Although his second tower does fall to Harrisburg, GMU about to get their first on bot side.
Notice, if you will, this is essentially just a trade of sides right now, where you're supposed to pull bottom tower in exchange for top tower. And what happened was Sion got caught out by the pick potential of the combination of like the Nautilus from Clyde and then also shorter Ace, and everything goes into the pockets of the Kai'Sa and everybody else here. And yes, you do end up trading tower for tower, but the best part about this is Sandflame able to catch Yuri taking that Krug camp means that he gets to back off and will not go down in exchange. That's a tempo advantage because of how much faster the play came through from the side of Harrisburg, and them still kind of piloting this 5,000 gold advantage that they've got coming into the middle of the game. And you got to see this is the play. Hook came through, Q came through, Ultimate was there from short race. He ends up pulling this kill, unfortunately. I think Hopeful getting it would be huge.
Yeah, the soul shackles at the end.
Yeah. But still, 2 towers that were taken. And like we said, there's the ward that just came down from the Sandflame on the bottom side that caught out the Kindred with that Krug take, which is what allowed him to back off. If they let that dive come through, maybe that's an even trade from GMU with just a little bit of tempo, but instead, it is just an absolute positive play from the side of Harrisburg.
It is indeed. They're going to continue those positive plays as Harrisburg going to start up this Rift Herald shorter Ace, taking the idea and going with it. No response really coming out. You do have Lafasa, who is roaming around, but not really going to be over in that area. As you see, GMU are heading back to bot side. They want to make sure they've got the vision control. They want to make sure they have the map control towards bot side. They are going to give up that first Rift Herald.
I think it's second Rift Herald. My apologies. Just want to make sure that's clear, everybody. Yeah, it is. They're also their second one. So Harrisburg picked up both of these, which is really, really nice. First one was dropped on bottom side, but it was indeed. Yes, it's incredible they were able to get their bot side going as hard as they did, because that's what led to the bottom tower being taken, top tower being taken, and this gold advantage ballooning to where it's at. Where now GMU, it feels almost as though they are 100% pressured to take these dragons as their win condition, because they have no chance of fighting in the 5-on-5. They seem to understand that, which is why there's been so much slower action as we've got into the 16-minute mark with only 6 kills. This is a pretty decent rarity within the collegiate scene, and within most scenes to see this few kills early. They're not even going to stop the Rift Herald before it charges.
No.
Oh, tragic.
Feels bad. That's a lot of advantages gained by Harrisburg in that fashion. They were looking for it, but the T comes out, and shorter Ace feeling too confident right now.
Yeah, Harrisburg is just kind of, they're claiming every single lane is their own at the moment. They've got 50 CS in top. They've got no advantage in the mid lane because it has been fantastic from Jinx GFs keeping up with the combination, with Lycamals in this, which is huge because Ziggs has had some pretty decent impact on the map. That's perhaps the one place I will give a ton of credit to GMU is Ziggs' ability to put pressure on the map. But they haven't found the tower demolition, which is what you want with the Tristana and the Ziggs combination. And also Tristana's down about 50 CS, multiple tower plates, 2 full towers to Hopeful, as well as these kills that have come through. That's pretty much the only thing Enrique's got in terms of resources to start with. This team can't fight. You see them slowing down their pacing, and now like dragons are going to start to become, I think, difficult to even pressure into, as you see Harrisburg's claiming all the vision control around the middle shallow parts of this jungle. So there's no approach to be had from GAU when they have this mid pressure. When bot lane gets shoved out, there's no way for GMU to safely walk into dragon. They might just have to seed this and slow burn away the game on the side of Harrisburg unless they find a point where they can actually take this 5-on-5.
And I think that's the most interesting point, right? There's a 6K gold lead already for Harrisburg before 20 minutes, even though there's not a lot of kills and not a lot of any this or that, right? It's the CS differentials, it's the differentials in the laning phases. But now GMU have found advantages in one way. They don't have a lot of kills, but they've got a couple objectives. So they've started themselves off nicely for this soul. They want to contest. As you said, maybe they shouldn't, but they're going to anyway. They're pushing out the vision that Harrisburg had put in front of the pit, and they're going to position themselves in front of the dragon here. Potentially try and take this, put them on soul points. So it could be a nice moment for GMU, but I feel like it's also one that you don't have to fight for. You don't have to give away.
I do love their positioning right there. They're kind of bunkered behind the dragon. They haven't started it yet. They're just going to allow Jinx GF to actually throw some things. Yeah, Sandflame is the terrifying piece here. There is no vision down there. Yeah, he's looking for the flank, and if he pulls this Ziggs into the team, that's a no-go right there. Oh, he popped out. They might have seen him. Yeah, I think Lafasa's going to ward. Oh,
Lafasa goes. Okay, so they find him out. I was going to say, he wasn't seen at all there. He has the blast cone to go over. If
that's really terrifying.
Oh,
this real bad.
There's the unstoppable onslaught into the fight. Brand initiates it, but then they get engaged on. Like a Moss has to flash away. The health bars for GMU are starting to get obliterated. Hopeful's taking a 1v2 on the backside. Lambert's spike comes out, but you're only healing the enemy team. Shorter Ace goes on a killing spree. There's the flash. Dredge line from Clyde. The style points are starting to come out. This is only game number 1 for Harrisburg.
They can't get a super clean engagement and can't get their carries into the right position. There's not enough damage done by Ziggs to start things off, and a huge flank from Sandflame puts a bunch of pressure into their backline. backline to be able to put actual damage into the enemy team. That gets capitalized on by Hopeful, and now a Dragon gets taken, but more importantly, 8,000 gold lead for Harrisburg means that GMU can't take these fights pretty much at all. They are banking on the fact that Ziggs and Tristana would be able to take towers, match this gold at some point, but right now it seems far-fetched to consider them even competitive in this game because this comp doesn't have mean engage, doesn't have a bunch of ways to put damage into the enemies. It's really tough to play this one out from the side of GMU. I'm very scared for what their prospects are for the remainder of this game, especially if Baron goes down and all of a sudden you got 3 pushing lanes on the side of Harrisburg. There's no way to slow that train.
And it's the gold that's spread across Harrisburg that's so worrying. You have everybody who's coming online here as we're going to look into this dragon fight, into this setup here, as Brand takes the initiation with the Unstoppable Onslaught.
He needs to. He's pretty much the only actual member that has any ability to engage. That black shield is huge, though, and all of a sudden there's no more CC to work with. They go on to Lycamals, but his flash is gorgeous as Shorter Ace throws up the ultimate as well.
Flash Soul Shackle.
It does. And then, of course, Kindred has to pop ultimate. You see Jinx GF, who's just almost getting 1v1 by Hopeful on the backline after Brandon went down.
That was a 2v1.
It was, yeah. And Clyde, that huge flash hook, also finds this amazing pick onto another member of the team, letting only Enrique get out of that situation on their own. So humongous plays from Harrisburg, well-executed team fight, not letting anything from GMU stick in that one, and this is what they're looking for is these 5-on-5s. They're doing it again where they're trying to push into this river with multiple members, but again, with this big of a gold advantage for the side of Harrisburg, I don't know that this is easy to accomplish, if even possible.
It's really worrisome. The thing that makes me sad is that the Kindred has actually been doing a great job, but it's still just not able to get the influence that you'd want because there isn't that big lead. You know, Gale Force is completed, couple of long swords, going to feel nice, but you don't have that advantage that makes you a threat on the map everywhere you step, and I feel like that's what's important with the Kindred as like a Moss, still on that that Infinity KDA, also wants to graduate college debt-free. Love it.
Absolutely reasonable. There's it's one of the best, I think, opportunities that here. Actually, I'm gonna wait until after this fight to go into this point.
We're gonna wait. We got action. Nuria already pops the Lambs Spy. It has to, but the rest of his team is nowhere to be found, and they're just getting obliterated there. That's gonna be huge. But unfortunately, like a Moss, as we speak about it, the Caster Curse comes true and will no longer be Infinity Man. He goes down for the first time of the tournament.
Yeah, first kill. Nice 1v1 attempt by Nuri, but unfortunately, without Kindred in the rest of the fight, you don't have the damage to work through everybody else. Enrique wasn't able to get into a positive situation where damage could be delivered either, and Harrisburg just wins every other asset of the fight. And like I said, Kindred getting a trade kill onto Lycamals. You shut down Lycamals KDA, that's great. You get a trade kill, that's wonderful. But everything else has now fled back into the pocket of Harrisburg, where they're sitting up 10,000 gold over top of their opposition. This early into the game, you see how difficult it is to play out. This is a nice little flank onto Jinx GF by Shorter Ace to start things off. That Predator makes it so difficult to get away.
Shackles.
Yeah, and then you see on the left side is the one fight, but Lafasa just gets run down by Hopeful. Scion can't do anything because he just gets slowed up, CC'd to death. Of course, the Ziggs have been brought down to like 25% health, 20% health, whatever it was by Shorter Ace before the fight even started. And notice, again, Enrique nowhere near this fight the entire time, was just taking Raptors because there's no entrance. This was 4 separate engagements that were all won by Harrisburg individually, unless you consider the trade to not be that case, which is perfect because GMU played best when they're in 5-man and they're playing 5-on-5. That wasn't 5-on-5. That was 1-on-1, 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 which is not what you want to play with.
And that's something we talked about in the draft, right? That Harrisburg have a composition that feels good to pull apart a stuck composition, that to space away GMU, and being able to kind of pick them apart one by one, and that's been happening over and over again. It's been GMU have not got their feet set, have not been able to get a real big fight except for around the Dragon Pit, where it didn't work out for them anyway. So there's a lot of things going in favor of Harrisburg right now, and it's a lot of the map macro and the positioning, the rotations, everything coming through, just kind of pushing and pulling GMU.
And the worst part about it, too, is one of the biggest things about GMU is that they don't have a lot of pick potential, so they can't even pull kills off of this team extremely easily. They are committed to like the 5-on-5 and then the poke and the siege that Tristana and the Ziggs are going to bring to the remainder of the game. But that's just not available to access to them when they're losing this badly, when they have so many towers down, so many structures brought off the map. In fact, if Harrisburg knew right now that there were 2 members on the top side of the map not able to respond, they would just be blitzing this tower, running in on top of Jinx GF, Enrique, and Lafasa, Lafasa making sure that this goes down. Thankfully, Kindred and Scion were not able to, they didn't reveal their situation. And so instead, Harrisburg just shoves up mid lane. They have bot lane already pre-shoved up, and they're going to go back to this dragon. This is perhaps also the only other thing that's keeping GMU alive. They took 2 dragons to begin the game.
Yeah.
That's 10 minutes that you add on to the timer before Soul starts to come in. And this first Baron doesn't do as much as what like a first Baron would have done a couple seasons ago. Second Baron will be lethal in the right hands, which is definitely Harrisburg's hands right now. But at least GMU bought themselves some time with their dragon takes.
Exactly, and I think that's what's so important right now. You are at about 11,000 gold lead right now for Harrisburg. So for GMU, you're trying to find ways to get a little bit of gold for yourself. I still feel like Nuri's been doing really good at running around the map, gathering up as much of this farm for his team as he can. You've still got some serious gold discrepancies between some of these lanes, and especially looking at that Kaisa, it's going to be really, really scary to go up against for Enrique, who is just sitting on that 1.5 items where you've got 3 completed for Hopeful.
Oh my
As
goodness.
we see the gold graph, yeah, that's 4,000 gold difference for Hopeful, and that's going to be a good amount. Everywhere else pretty even though you see Nuri up in CS, still behind because of those kills, because of the gold influx that Harrisburg has been able to put onto shorter ace, and they're looking for more.
It's really tough to look at, unfortunately, to see this Tristana down so much gold, which, again, it was supposed to be the intention here for GMU, where now they're just counter-sieging with Ziggs, trying to clear waves as best as possible. How many times have you seen Jinx GF, who just throws ults into the side of waves right there, can't even hit Hopeful with it, just has to use it to clear the waves so they don't lose their top tower? That's not at all what this composition was designed to do. They're supposed to sit around towers on the enemy's front and to be able to take those with like the demolition charge with the likes of the Ziggs, and they're supposed to be with the satchel charge that comes out from the Tristana, but have never been able to get to that point. Harrisburg played very well in the early game to make sure that they'd never have the chance to siege up on towers at all during the course of the game. So now it's just GMU playing a waiting game, hoping at some point they're getting an opportunity to take a big fight, to get Ziggs and Tristana involved into a big one, find a good engagement with Scion. But that clock is ticking lower and lower, and Harrisburg has yet to make a mistake before the end of this game. I just don't know that they will.
And, it feels pretty bad to have such a siege-based composition with only 1 tower down. Maybe get a couple more if they can find that rotation around the map. But as you said, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be few and far between. And, at this point, you're just trying to survive fights. You're trying to at least lessen the pressure that can be won from a big team fight win for Harrisburg. Maybe not even opting into those fights. But the question is, if you're not getting the lead back now, what's it going to look like in 10 minutes when they have Dragon Soul? What's it going to look like when you're forced to take these fights around Baron? You're getting to a position where you're just getting bled out, and you have to find ways back in, but there's no real avenue forward.
No, there isn't. Especially when jungle camps start getting pilfered and lanes start getting shoved in underneath of your towers, and you're just catching over and over and over again, and the map continues to just get strangleheld by the side of Harrisburg, who, like I said, look at this. They're slow pushing in mid lane. The Hopeful could have cleared that instantly. Instead, they're going to try to wait for this next wave to catch it or something like that. They're just getting information. This is a fantastic question. I love this one. What makes you think your team is so good, or something along those lines? And Clyde just says, we don't hate each other, which is fantastic. Yeah, not hating each other is perhaps the first thing that should happen.
It's perfect. It's exactly what you need from every program. Gotta love it, Clyde. Gotta love it, Harrisburg. But I appreciate everything that is done. I love getting those little cards. They're absolutely wonderful. Samplay about to get a card of his own.
Yeah.
It's going to be the death card of Enrique. He tries to rocket jump out of there, but can't get out because the showstopper stops him in his tracks. Lafasa has to go big, but goes down. Hopefully gets a double kill. And Nuri trying to find something. This is such a spread fight. And Harrisburg are literally just throwing their gold at the faces of GMU.
Will they save the pentakill?
Will
they save the pentakill?
They can do it. Oh, Quadra! Make it a penta! We got Hopeful popping off in game number 1 of the day.
That's team coordination right there, pretty much across the board. It all starts with a pickoff onto the first member of the team. Enrique gets caught out by the set with that grab and with that ultimate. Can't get that blast or the blast away, the W wave, be able to use that. And from that point, it was just Hopeful dashing and moving around the fight, literally just cross from mid lane to the top lane and back all the way. And there was nothing to be done by GMU. Just got completely split apart. Never got down into that 5-on-5 they were looking for. And Harrisburg convincingly takes game number 1.
14,000 gold in the lead. Harrisburg making their round of 16 debut in strong fashion here. One of the top teams here at the tournament, showing it here in this game and absolutely dominating every point of the map. Besides those, first two dragons, everything went really good for Harrisburg. But on the other side, GMU, they need to find something in this game too to get them back in this series, Rebel.
Yeah, that composition was hard to play, and then also it required a lot of early action, which just was never there from the side of GMU, which was really unfortunate. I didn't like to see that necessarily. Go back to some of the comfort stuff. It seemed like you didn't get much of that. Like I said, even Ziggs isn't something I saw too heavily for the team. They played to bot side. Also, again, a strategy that isn't as common. Typically, they play to the top side of the map. Instead, they went to Scion, they went to Ziggs, things that stall really heavily, and played with a Kindred, which is really aggressive. Their composition had no cohesion. Its identity was kind of lacking. They didn't play it even with the win conditions that were set, weren't able to play to it properly, and that was unfortunate. And especially when you're playing against one of the top seeds of the tournament in Harrisburg, you can't give away that kind of issue without having a game plan set forth. And so in game number 2, draft yourself something easier, play to that style that you're known for, give yourself an easy team fight to access so that you can compete with one of the top dogs here.
Well, we've got our opinions. The analyst desk have theirs. We're going to see what their opinions on that first game are and talk a little bit about how this series is going. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you so much, Bazell and Rebel Fox back on the desk once again with Dylan and Sean as we have to recap that game 1. And what a dominant game 1 it was for Harrisburg as the varsity program making a statement. They want to make it in the top 8 and they want to make it in cleanly. And I just want to get, first gut reactions before we start getting into the replays. And I'm going to start off with OP TSM fan. Is this how you expected the series to go? I know that you were the one pitching a 2-1, something a little bit closer, but this game 1 was all Harrisburg. Oh, looks like we got OP Mike back. OP, get us started on that one once again. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's hear it.
Cool. All right, so just like the game that we saw, some of that stuff fell on some deaf ears in terms of the gameplay that was going on. But Shorter Ace's decision making in the early game really it struck me off guard. I thought they had an advantage in the bot lane that they could look to abuse and with the priority that they were going to have there. But he decided to go towards these Rift Heralds and everything like that. So, and from that, just, as the casters were talking about, just slapping them with their wallets, the more and more the interest accrued as time went on. So
yeah, and I know we have some replays to go over. The first one being that bot lane fight where we really started to see the game crack open in favor of Harrisburg and the Storm. I mean, they created the Storm in that bot lane with all the members they were sending in. As OP, I want you to guide us through this one.
Yeah, so they're coming down here for the gank right here. The wave is pushing, and I feel like that's kind of telegraphed. Clyde with a really nice hook right there. Instant teleports coming from the side of HU as the double TP answers back. Sandflames with this huge set ult right there, misses it right there. But then you see Hopeful picking up this kill right here onto Tristana right there, which allowed them to kind of come out ahead. But meanwhile, the things that are happening that are not being shown in that replay, Victor shoving in the mid wave. He didn't respond to the TP, so he's getting a wave denied there. While Shorter Ace, we just mentioned, was focusing on that top side of the map with the neutral objectives. And that Herald led to even bigger plays to snowball the advantage that they had down there with Hopeful and Clyde.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate something that Rebel brought up on the cast, which is that some of these teams that are a little bit less experienced, not quite at the top level, they'll over-index themselves when they go for a play. They'll send 5 people down in the bottom lane when in reality you're getting at most 1 or 2 kills. And you see, more seasoned teams with a little bit better sense of, how to play the map, reactions, cross-map trading. Harrisburg's able to actually just win out on that trade, right? They get the Rift Herald, they deny waves, they end up using that Rift Herald to break open the entire bottom lane turret. So that's why you see Harrisburg kind of balloon their gold lead, despite them kind of having not the best early game in terms of like proactive kills and plays.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't getting the kills, but hey, they were getting the gold. And I know as we dive into this next replay, when this fight starts off, they already had a 4 to 5k gold advantage at this dragon. And Dylan, this dragon went all Harrisburg as they really made their mark in this one.
Yeah, so we saw them give up the first 2 dragons, like OP said, and that was a little bit interesting, but it makes sense because they were giving up those dragons for things on the other side of the map. Tower plates, denying waves, things like that. And this is the team fight where everything really comes to a head. We see Harrisburg finally able to utilize the gold lead that they built up for themselves. GMU just simply getting stat checked in a lot of these. And, beautiful play. We see Clyde with an amazing flash hook. He was so solid this game. He's one of these players that, a lot of teams will look at him and just think like, oh, he's not always the highest rated player in terms of solo queue ranking and things like that, but he is a staple in collegiate League of Legends in terms of just proactivity, in terms of reliability. He's a player that's always going to be playing well in these games.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Picks that they had, and then knew right when they had to turn it on to start flexing their wallets. I really enjoyed, in particular, Sandflame, especially. This game is going to be my shout out for this game. He showed really good laning as well, and it was just really good overall from Harrisburg. I think, as Dylan was saying before the game 1 started, it's going to probably be looking like a close 2-0 unless GMU can make some change-ups going here into game 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just got word that we are now back live. We have been going over some of these replays. I know that we have 90 seconds left. The show must go on as we're going to make sure that we get game 2 started up on time. Just going over the pentakills, all the good plays from Harrisburg, and I kind of want to put you on the spot here, Dylan. One highlight from Harrisburg in game 1, and then one change from GMU in game 2. What do you want to see?
One highlight from Harrisburg is definitely their ability to just recognize the map state and know what they should do as their composition. They weren't getting bottom lane priority, although I thought they maybe could have in the early levels. So Shorter Ace had a beautiful reaction play to just give up the bottom side of the map, play towards the top side in the early stages where the set was beating down on the Scion. And I want to see them continue that in this game too. And then on the side of GMU, one thing that I would change, we talked about this last week when we had Command Attack on the desk. These teams that are underdogs, they cannot sit back and scale. That is just not going to work. It's like at the international stage, if you're North America playing against China, you're not going to win if you play team composition that comes online in 30 or 40 minutes, right? You need to just skill check them, basically. I don't think the players on GMU are that much worse individually than on the side of Harrisburg, but I do think their team coordination and their team play is where they will, falter. So why not just play towards your strengths, pick champions that you're comfortable with, pick lanes that you're comfortable with, and just play around that if you're GMU.
Well, we have it from Dylan himself, player. Let's see if they can make these adjustments. I know that Harrisburg, they looked strong in that game 1, but it's about time that we head into game 2 and see if GMU has something else up their sleeve and they can come back stronger, as they're going to have a little bit of a retreat after that game 1. But game 2, I'm sure they're going to come out with a different game plan, some new tactics, and just to see if they're able to do that, Mazel, Rebel Fox, take it away once again.